welcome back to our YouTube channel. I hope you can hear me because I'm not mic'd up or anything, because just on the spur of the moment I was walking through our rose beds here and they're just absolutely beautiful this year. I'm taking absolutely no credit for that. I think it's down to the weather, but because they're so incredible and are flowering their little socks off, I'm going to end up with a lot of deadheading to do, as you can see behind me here, because I don't need my roses for anything this week. So I've cut a lot of roses for the house and given some to friends and family, but now I need to deadhead these roses to keep them flowering. So I thought, that's such a shame. Before I do that, let's share them with you lot on YouTube. So I'm going to run you through the roses now and talk to you about each different variety and the positives and negatives that I've found with growing these roses. So before I start, I'll talk to you about the age of these roses. So these two beds here behind me, I planted in the November of 2021, and these were the first roses that I got. And then those two beds over there I planted in the autumn of 2023, so they're a few years younger. All the roses I got bare root from David Austin roses. A little bit pricey, aren't they, roses, but they've been doing really well in this field. In my previous site where I was in the walled garden, I couldn't grow roses at all because the soil was really sandy and it didn't have a lot of nutrients in it, and the roses just used to suffer a lot of pests and diseases. Well, the few roses that I tried to grow there anyway used to, and they were quite weedy and just weren't happy in general. So one of the joys of having heavy clay soil in this field is that the roses really like it, and they particularly hit their stride this year, like I say, which I am actually putting down to the weather and nothing that I've particularly done. But first I'll show you the varieties in case you might want to grow some roses yourself. So we'll start down here. This is Desdona. I pruned her quite harshly this winter because it's never done incredibly well for me by comparison to the other roses, but this year she's put on loads of flowers, and you can see there consistently I'm getting 3 to 4 blooms per stem, and that's how the blooms start, in a really soft, like ultra soft blush pink. Doesn't deal amazingly well with the weather, this one, and I would say that Desdemona has the shortest vase life out of the roses that I've got, but she does have a really soft nice perfume. So that one there is Desdemona. This absolute stunner here is called Vanessa Bell. It's always been the healthiest of my roses. It's always been the tallest of my roses consistently year in year out, so that's got nothing to do with the weather. So these plants now are standing at a height of around about 1.5 metres. So she flowers in this absolutely gorgeous buttermilk yellow flower, and then that fades to cream. And you get multiple clusters of flowers on each stem. And look at that, hardly any thorns. I mean, basically, what, 3 thorns on that one stem there? So not a lot of cleaning off to do. Not a nasty one on your fingers. Yeah, Vanessa Bell, absolutely lovely. Next up, this gorgeous one here is Sweet Juliet. Stunning. Such a nice sort of soft peachy pink colour. This one has a few more thorns on its stem down there, but the thorns are quite small, so not massively dangerous to the fingers. So Sweet Juliet is absolutely lovely, scented, hardly any thorns. Her stems vary quite a lot, so some of the stems you're getting 3 flower heads there, but you can see that one there's got a cluster of blooms at the top of it. Yeah, she's hit a stride this year, has Sweet Juliet, and the flowers fade down to that, so I've got so much deadheading to do. This one down here used to be one of my favourites. This is Rald Doll. It looks quite apricot-y on one, but it sometimes is slightly more peach in colour. There it is there, looking slightly more peach. I really like Rald Doll because I do like the colour and I like the amount of petals in the flower, but I think I've over-liked it because I've used it a lot over the last few years and I've probably been a bit too heavy-handed with how much I've cut off of the plant when it's been in flower. So this year it doesn't look as healthy as some of the other varieties, so I'm going to ease off on the Rald Doll this year. This absolute stunner here is probably the best rose for cut flowers. If you can only get one rose in your garden or growing space, I recommend this one. This is Queen of Sweden, and as you can see there, I've got a few shrubs of it and it is covered in flowers. Very rarely gets a pest or disease, and most importantly, more or less thornless. Flowers nice and tall. So these rose bushes here now are flowering at about 1.5 metres, so a similar height to the Vanessa Bell. Slightly fewer flower buds on each stem, but absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so this is this is a rose that I really want to love. This is Darcy Bustle. I like it because it's that sort of like plummy red purple sort of shade that just makes me want to eat it. But she's never been the healthiest rose in this field, to be honest. Gets quite a lot of pest and disease. That being said, this year her leaves look fairly clean thus far, and she is putting up some nice healthy new growth. But she's really short because she's always poorly. I might give her one more year to see if she hits her stride. But yeah, definitely one of the weaker of the varieties that I grow, but still a lovely colour. This is one for the growers who might be growing for wedding floristry, and the colour tone will definitely make you swoon. This is Emily Bronte. It's one of my newer roses, so she's now flowering at around 1 metre tall. Multiple flower heads per stem, and again fairly thornless, looking really healthy at the minute. Nice glossy leaves, no signs of any nasties at the minute. One of my newer varieties, a rose that I think is described perfectly in its name. This is Tranquility. So you can see they're fairly big flowers on this one, and a nice ruffle to the petals once they open out. So that is one there, fully open. Kind of reminds me of a giant zinnia. Thorns on this variety are quite large, but there aren't many of them. And really good, long, strong stems there. Doesn't have a perfume, this one, but I really like the petals. That's Tranquility. Now, this rose kind of makes me laugh. This is called Inva, and it got sent by mistake, actually, because I wouldn't have ordered it, because I know I keep going on about the thorn issue on roses, but look at them. I mean, it's just treacherous. And the roses are a pretty colour, but it's really not worth the risk to your fingers to be using it in floristry. And I think it's probably going to get moved to my home garden. One to avoid, Inva. This rose here is absolutely stunning at the minute. This is Lady of Shellot. All the shrubs are just covered in flowers, as you can see there. It is one of the larger blooms that I grow, and she can be a little bit thorny, but I particularly enjoy the sort of two-tone colour effect on her petals. She never has a problem with pest or disease. She goes for it every year, produces quite a lot of flowers, admittedly a lot more this year. But if you want an apricotty, soft orange rose, I really like Lady of Shellot. Now this is a lovely rose. This is Constant Gardener, and the roses are absolutely gorgeous. You can see I've got a bit of a thing for this sort of like peachy tone in any flower, but particularly roses. But I would say it's definitely not doing as well as Lady of Shellot, and it's starting to get signs of pest and disease damage. and it's got aphids on it there as well. So I'm yet to be convinced that its variety is as strong as some of the others that I grow, but absolutely lovely flowers. Finally, this big fella here, this is Champagne Moments, which is a nice soft, again very wedding market sort of colour flower to it. Huge big flowers. Seems quite happy, lots of blooms on it. Not as tall yet, but that's probably because it's one of my newer roses. But look at them, how was that for a thorn? Quite thorny, this one. But I would say might be worth it just for the colour tone and those lovely ivory flowers. Now I better get on and do some deadheading. For the beady-eyed people amongst you might have noticed there's been a costume change. That's not a fashion statement, that's because last night when I was filming and really enjoying the roses, I lost track of time and I forgot about picking my son up, so I had to whiz into town and pick him up. I should say at this point no children were harmed in the making of that part of the video, and he is 16 and he had just been to the gym, so he was quite safe. And I was only 5 minutes late. These things happen at this time of year. So I'm now going to get on and start to prune my roses before it gets too hot. It's already quite warm now. I'm going to get on and get all these roses pruned, and then we're going to give them a feed which will replenish all the efforts and nutrients they've been using to produce this first flush of flowers, so that we're going to get another flush later in the season, around about 4 to 6 weeks to flush up with some new growth again, so not that long at all really. And we'll get sporadic blooms throughout that period, because there are still some buds on these that are still to open, but everything that's flowering and starting to drop today I'm going to take off. So what you're looking for when it comes to pruning roses is anything that is about to drop its petals, like that there, wants to come off, and then leaving any of the buds that are left on it, because they're just going to open and look lovely. But you can see on this one here, basically all of those flowers, now you can see that one there is just dropping its petals everywhere, are spent basically, they're finished. So with this stem here, I would be taking off the whole section. You can see there it's got lots of branches with lots of flower heads on. I wouldn't just snip down like I would if I was prolonging flowering like that and prune it in that way, because nothing else good is going to happen at this point here. So with this stem of rose, I'm actually going to take it back and cut all of that off, because a good hard prune like that is going to produce a lot stronger new growth coming up, and the stronger new growth will obviously have stronger stems for your next flush of flowers. Whereas if I just pruned out these little sections here, you would have got really wispy, sappy stems coming up from it, and they wouldn't have been that good as cut flowers. So although that looks quite harsh, this is also the way that I cut dahlias, I should say, and we'll be probably looking at them later in the season. That'll do the plant a lot more good than just taking a couple of buds off the top. So this one as well, that flower's more or less gone. So right back down to there. So if they've got plenty of buds on, just lightly prune them and enjoy the flowers for a bit longer. But if the flower buds have completely gone, take it back down to a good healthy bud joint and prune off there, and you'll see that that's when you'll get a really strong second or even third flush on your roses. There we go, roses post pruning. Now you can see I've still actually got some flowers on here. That's because on some stems all that had gone over was a couple of flowers, so I've just taken those flower buds out. But you can see here in other areas I've actually been maybe a little bit more severe, some people would say, and I've taken out any stems like this where all the flowers were basically finished on it. And you can see that I've put the height of the rose bush actually down in areas by about 30 centimetres. Now I know that looks really harsh, but what that's allowed the rose bush to do, now what that's done is allowed, imagine my hand is the breeze, a lot more air circulation around the rose itself. Now, air circulation is brilliant, particularly for roses. It's really important because a lot of roses can suffer from fungal infections, so rust and mildew and things like that. And the better the air circulation that you allow around your plants, the less likely it is that they're going to suffer in that way. So after it's had its first flush, obviously the plant's gone like put all of its energy in to producing these wonderful roses, and that's taken a lot from the plant. So imagine if you've sort of just run a marathon, then you've exerted a lot of energy. So that's when sort of athletes would be trying to put the nutrients that their body has exerted back into it. So we treat the plants in the same way. So we've pruned back to increase air circulation. We've taken off all the spent flower buds that would have been sapping energy from the plant, because after the flowers bloom, the plant would be then putting energy, if we allowed it, to produce a seed pod. Now, we don't want it to spend all its energy doing that, because we'd quite like it to produce us some more roses. So we've taken all that stress off the plant, we've increased air circulation, and this evening, because there's no point in me doing it now because it's too hot, this evening as the sun settles, I'm going to be foliar feeding these plants with a spray of liquid seaweed, and that's just going to give them a little boost to reward them for all their efforts in the flowers, and hopefully give them exactly what they need so that we get a lovely second flush of flowers pretty soon. And that's it. That is how I try and keep my roses happy. This is my personal opinion, as everything is on this channel. So if you've got any hints and tips that you want to share with other people about how you keep your roses happy, then please do so in the comments. It'd be lovely to read some other hints and tips. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It really does just help me keep the channel going and be able to create content for you guys. So if you do that, that would be really kind, and I'll see you next time. Bye.